I'm a little fired up today, Denver Broncos fans. I believe the NFL is screwing the Denver Broncos. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I believe that, because the recent news handed down by Roger Goodell and the NFL is that Dre Greenlaw is being suspended without pay for one game for an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty following Sunday's game against the New York Giants. So mind you, this is after the game has concluded and they're throwing a penalty, and something tells me that this has something to do with the way the refs officiated this game. Here's what you need to know about the incident, in case you're like, where are we going, Moose? Like, what's going on? What is happening? After Will Lutz drained the game-winning field goal, shout out Will Lutz and the Broncos, 33 points in the fourth quarter, just saying. Broncos players rushed out onto the field to celebrate the victory. While the team poured onto the field to tackle Will Lutz from Denver sideline, Greenlaw could be seen going after referee Brad Allen. We'll talk about this in a second, why that's not the whole story. Appearing to shout at the official who was jogging off the field. What was said isn't clear. I don't know that we'll ever find out what was actually said, though it certainly didn't seem to be friendly. Of course not. Pointing at him, screaming. It looked like there were a couple of obscenities thrown. Allen flagged Greenlaw for unsportsmanlike conduct, and now the NFL has stepped in and issued its own discipline for the former fifth-round pick. So what do we know? Greenlaw, in a vacuum, right? In a vacuum. Greenlaw has been suspended because he verbally assaulted Brad Allen. That was the term used, not by me, but by the NFL. This is so unbelievably soft. This is the NFL. These are grown men. This is testosterone. This is in front of 80,000 fans screaming and cheering after you just won perhaps one of the biggest games since the Super Bowl back in 2016. And all of a sudden, now the refs are saying, well, you can't go after the refs like that. But it doesn't tell the whole story. You can clearly see here in just a little bit what I'm talking about. But this is why I believe it's screwing the Denver Broncos. First of all, the refs called an incredibly sloppy game. Not every penalty was a missed call, right? But the Broncos had 12 of them. I can name one right off the bat that I believe was total BS. Total bullshit. It was the Riley Moss penalty, that pass interference call, which was textbook coverage if you go back and you watch the game. And he runs down the sideline, does a little bit of hand fighting that the offensive wide receiver was doing as well, flips his body at the very last second, which is what you're supposed to do, turn your back to or turn forward facing the ball, and then because, I think it was Wan'Dale Robinson, falls down, the refs view that and go, well, there must have been contact, throw the penalty, and then the Giants score. That was complete bullshit. You come back and make the most historic comeback of the entire NFL season. It feels vindictive. It feels like the refs were like, okay, congratulations, but we're going to stick it to you one last time. Now, is there a reason why that the refs could be hating on the Denver Broncos? I'm not necessarily sure that's the narrative here, but now it feels like there's a vindictive play or play call from Brad Allen against Dre Greenlaw. Now, before I continue on with what we actually should be talking about when it comes to this situation, do me a favor and hit subscribe, but not just because it helps grow the channel. We're trying to grow the hype around the Broncos Breakdown family. So, do me a favor, if you love what you see, you want to see this video get on the trending page on YouTube, you got to smash that hype button, but it can only happen if you are subscribed. So here's the screenshot of what we saw. This is from the game. This is the play in question. You can see Brad Allen extending his arms. Now, I don't want to necessarily say this is a shove. You can call it a shove. You can call it a push. I think it's more gray area. I think he's trying to get out of the way here so that he doesn't get mauled by the oncoming Denver Broncos fans. But you can't just say that he politely moved him out of the way either. You can clearly see why Dre Greenlaw views this as a shove. You've just been penalized over and over again throughout the game. The emotions, the tension, the testosterone, the adrenaline is high. It's pumping through your veins. And when you see this, I can understand why it's a snap reaction. But here is the play in question where Dre Greenlaw is talking to Brad Allen. Now, Allen makes it seem like Dre Greenlaw prevented him from getting off the field. I don't see that even remotely close. Greenlaw is at least 6 feet away, just pointing at him, and you can see that Allen has a clear path to get off the field. He just didn't like what Greenlaw had to say. And that is exactly why I'm going to compliment Dre Greenlaw. He's standing up for his boys. He's standing up for his teammates. It's a leadership move, and I'm proud that he stood up to his teammate. Now, here's where I will push back slightly, just slightly. We clearly don't know what was said from Dre Greenlaw. If it was a threat to Brad Allen or his family, then it's inexcusable. You cannot threaten someone, no matter what the cost. But if you're just screaming, F you, F this, that was a BS game, you've got to be a man, Brad Allen. Take that on the chin, brother. These are grown men. You're going to hear the negative comments. It's sports. When has sports ever been rational? It hasn't. So I'm proud that Dre Greenlaw stood up for his teammate. John Middlecoff, one of my very favorite podcasters on the NFL, I'm sure you know who he is. He echoed exactly what I'm talking about. This is what he said on his most recent podcast. It was a very short excerpt from his show where he talked a little bit about Dre Greenlaw. You can argue that it's not appropriate to go after a ref like that. But there's a lot of things that aren't appropriate in professional sports. There better be a very distinct line that better be crossed to suspend and dock a game check away from me as a player. Period. Put a stamp on it. Because, what are we doing? We're grown men. That's so fucking soft. Pardon my language. And Dre Greenlaw, first game back, going up against rookie Jackson Dart, layers the frickin' boom on him on one specific pass. I mean, I thought for his first game back, he really showed up and played great. Now, was it from an X's and O's perspective, from a, schematic perspective? Was it the perfect game? Of course not. Of course not. But we can all agree the Broncos didn't play a perfect game. In fact, far from it. They played a perfect fourth quarter. Here's the good news. Dre Greenlaw is appealing this one-game suspension. This coming from Zach Stevens last night. The appeal will likely be heard in the next 48 hours. So we don't have an update as for right now at the time of this recording. However, once one does come along, we'll make a video for you. We'll make a short for you. We'll make sure you're in the know. Now, coming up here, before I get into my friends over at Brunt, I do have one question to ask you because it has everything to do with what we're talking about today. If you support Dre Greenlaw, you know what? Spam F the refs. Spam F the refs down in the comment section down below. Don't spam the actual word. We don't want to get flagged, but spam F the refs because this is inexcusable from the NFL. Now, coming up, I'm going to tell you about more from what I saw, and this is actually from Sean Payton and Bo Nix's perspective on how heading into week 8, there needs to be a major change and why I believe the fourth quarter from Bo Nix might serve as the wake-up call the Denver Broncos needed. Before I do that, I got to tell you about today's sponsor, Brunt. Check this Marin boot design out. Sleek, stylish. It is the perfect work boot for those hot Texas summer days. Now, realize it's not summer, we're in fall now, but I still have to do yard work, and these Brunt boots were comfortable right out of the box. Most other boots require a significant break-in or break-in periods. Brunt, though, just isn't about work boots. They offer a full range of high-performance gear built for tough jobs, from heavy-duty work pants to weather-resistant jackets. Brunt designs durable, reliable workwear to keep you protected and productive in any condition. Choosing work boots used to mean sacrificing comfort or durability. If they felt good, they just didn't last. And if they lasted, they definitely wrecked your feet. Brunt was tired of the workwear brands out there cutting corners. You work way too hard to be stuck in those uncomfortable boots that just don't hold up. So they built something better. Boots that are insanely comfortable and built for any job site. For a limited time, our listeners get $10 off at Brunt when you use code CHAT at checkout. Just head to bruntworkwear.com, use the code CHAT, and you are good to go. And after you order, they're going to say, hey, where'd you hear about Brunt? Do us a favor. Tell them it was Moose and the Broncos Breakdown that sent you. All of that in the comments and description of today's video. Shout out to Brunt. Here's the wake-up call that I think you needed. And like I said, I'm a little fired up today. The juices are flowing a little bit. I said this yesterday, and I was so tired and so lethargic, and I didn't really have a voice, that I didn't really appreciate the NFL statistic that is put in front of me. Bo Nix is the first player in NFL history to have 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns in the fourth quarter of a game. The first ever. Bo is capable of playing at the very highest level in the biggest moments. So there should be no reason that you can't do it in the first 3 quarters, because the first 3 quarters of the game are that crescendo to the big ultimate finish in the fourth. And it was almost like Bo played better knowing that they were down. But you don't want to play like that forever. It's not sustainable. Open up the playbook, Sean. Let this man throw the football. He's clearly a momentum quarterback right now. Young players are known for this all the time. When they're playing great, they're playing excellent, and the stretch looks outstanding. When they're cold, they're ice cold. You see this a lot from young quarterbacks. It's not just a Bo thing. Caleb Williams is going through this. Jaden Daniels is going through this. Michael Penix is going through this. But you can clearly tell, not just from the Giants game, but from all of his games, that Bo is still yet to put up a solid 4 quarters of play. Now, you might put in 2 quarters. You might put in, like I said, a half. You might put in a solid 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters. There has not been a single game yet, though, where it has been good from start to finish. But Bo in the fourth is excellent. He is excellent. This is Bo in the fourth in the entire season, by the way. 68% completion percentage, 494 passing yards, so we'll round up to 500. 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a passer rating of 104. I mean, I look at this and I say, if I'm capable of doing these in the biggest moments, then the rest of the game should feel almost uninspired. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that like you should be able to calmly collect yourself as a team and go through the first 3 quarters and keep the game manageable or get out to an early lead. The Broncos seem to thrive right now playing from behind, and that's not what you want to do. I get that there's a lot of fans that are like, oh, if we know that we're great in the fourth, then maybe we do want to be behind because it lights a fire. That's not sustainable against the best teams in the NFL. It isn't. You're not going to do that against the Kansas City Chiefs. I can guarantee it. You're not going to do that against the Indianapolis Colts if you meet them in the playoffs. I guarantee it. And hell, if you ended up making the Super Bowl, you can't do that against the Rams. You can't do that against, I mean, you did it against the Eagles, but let's be honest. Like, the teams that are going to be making the deep playoff runs, you cannot do that against. And this is not just a Bo thing. It's a Sean thing. He's got to look at himself as well. He's got to look in the mirror and ask himself, am I doing what's best for my team with my play calling? And he talked about it. He acknowledged that there are problems. This is coming from the horse's mouth, no pun intended. Here's what Sean said. There's a sense of urgency, certainly. I would say the one thing more concerning is us playing better in the earlier quarters, including Nix. So I think that's key. It's been encouraging that we've been able to find some games and yet I said this to you guys yesterday. We're going to play in bigger games and we're going to have a lot more efficient first halves in games. So it sounds like he's aware of the problem. But if you're aware of the problem, things like these can't happen. The lack of balance, and Producer Reed, we're just going to rifle through these as not as quick as possible, but we don't want to spend too much time on them. 4 straight passes to start the game. Inexcusable. You've got to find a more balanced way to start the game. And I get it. Some drops from Cortland Sutton, drops from Troy Franklin and Nate Adkins don't help sustain drives. But the missed passes downfield, when you are allowing Bo to throw the ball down the field, he's not connecting. So that's a Bo problem. But the fucking screens, pardon my language, it's terrible. It's just like there's like 25 to 30 screen passes called per game, and they're at the wrong times. And that's where the questionable short down calls are coming in. 1st and 5. You're 1st and 5 on the Giants 5, and you don't punch the ball in, and on 4th down, you call a screen to Cortland Sutton on the 2. Inexcusable. Inexcusable. So there are areas that you've got to clean up. And we talked a little bit about the penalties yesterday. I don't really have an answer for that because there's only one actual solution. Be more disciplined. But my final thoughts about this team after this game and after the news, this team is on the precipice of greatness. It really is. We are a couple of plays, literally 2 or 3 plays away from being 7-0. This is such a talented football team. They just haven't quite taken the plunge yet because they're still trying to figure it out. Maybe that figures it out against the Dallas Cowboys, who have a terrible defense. Terrible. So I feel like it's coming, but it's not there yet. We'll be back later on today with some more news and rumors surrounding the Denver Broncos. My name is Moose, a little fired up today. Hopefully you are as well. But remember, the Broncos are in command of the AFC West, firmly in first place. A reminder to subscribe to the channel. And as always, Mile High Salute. Be cool.